So how's the UK changed for the worse? Well, I'll give you some examples. So 70s, 80s, 90s, everything in the UK was humming. There was, so in the UK, pubs are a key part of like the communities. They're all busy. You could go to a pub on a Sunday, catch up with everyone, get a good meal. It didn't cost the earth. That was like and then during the week, work, Sunday, pub, beach walk, that sort of thing. So when we hit 2000s, I guess the birth of the internet, pubs started to close, go out of business. So that central community point was gone. Around 2000, the farming industry was completely decimated by the government, maybe on purpose, because the government can't manage anything, let alone farming industry. So around outside of London, just all you have is derelict farms, or one big one that now manages all the land, and they do it in a way like for speed. So in the 90s, you would have small independent farmers who would turn over the soil properly, go about the crops properly. Now it's just scratch. You just scratch the soil, throw on the seed, and hope for the best. So the farming industry changed, the pub industry changed, and then loads of manufacturing companies, several around us, that did exist in the 70s, 80s, 90s. After 2000, just one by one fell, like closed, just literally closed. No one took them on, no one grew them, nothing, just closed. So you've got no farm work, no pub community, and the manufacturing companies closed. So where do those people go? Well, they try to head to town, and you've maybe then got insurance companies around us, because we were near Felixstowe. You'll have the shipping companies, but a lot of business a lot of people were taken up by these small industries, and they closed. Back in the day, my father died last January. I had all his paperwork to kind of go through, and I was looking back through his, because he ran a farm, back through his planning applications, and it was all very simple. He put in a plan, it got approved, he built the building, and onwards and upwards, took on more people, had a bigger business, tried to make some money, invest it back into the business, grow the business, and so on. Nowadays, like post 2010, you would have, well, there's no farms to start with, but you would have no hope of getting planning like how he used to. No chance. People don't even bother now. They don't even bother putting planning because they know they're not going to get it. And when it takes 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, I mean, we only see 80 summers, 70 summers, and you're going to spend 3 summers stressing about the council not giving you planning. People just don't bother. So the farms are gone, the pubs are gone, and then what happens is the nearby village to us had on the market square, there was like a ironmonger's where you could just buy like batteries, bulbs, mops, all that kind of stuff. Then next to it would be like your supermarket, little supermarket, and then there'd be a butcher's, and then like not a delicatessen, but like you could buy hams and wines and cheese and kind of that kind of specialty store, and then like a 7-Eleven or like a corner shop, and for I don't know, all the way up until 2000, that would be a bustling like area. Post 2000, every single shop, actually bar the butchers, has closed, run out of business. And then they charge now for parking in that place. And then they wonder why no one goes, and they wonder why no shop will open up there, or why no shop survives. Because they've killed it. They put up the business rates, this is the council, they put in paid for parking, which is just a pain. When you're not stopping for more than 30 minutes, like you don't need to charge for parking. Anyway, or they just make it very difficult to pay for parking. So yeah, that died, the pubs died, the manufacturing plants died, you can't get planning. And I understand outside of the UK, you still think it's pre-2000, you still think there's manufacturing, you still think there's like opportunity. It's all dying. And now in the UK, near where we are, there's not a single bank branch open. And yet to still conduct business, they still want you to go into branch. How can I go into branch when there is no branch? And I don't know why the banks have closed their branches. Costs probably the business rates are too much. Not enough people go into branch. Only the ones that have to, they can't justify it. And yet they won't remove the go into branch like protocols. So yeah, no banks. And now eating out. Let's talk about eating out. So it became so cost prohibitive to eat out that we would really question whether we wanted to spend that money on a very average eating experience, because the UK is not known for its food. And when you go out and you spend £20, which would be 100 ringgit, you get one dish, and one dish that's not big enough, so you have to go home and eat some more. So you can't eat out. Manufacturing jobs are gone, farming jobs are gone, banks have gone. There used to be like the video stores. I know obviously everything's gone online now, but nothing took their place. The video store near us is now someone's apartment. Actually, I don't even think they got planning to change it. So I think it's just an empty shed, or an empty building. The other thing they've done in the UK is protect like workers' rights. So it's really expensive to hire people now, and it's really expensive to fire people now. So companies, you don't just take on people because you can't get rid of them. So that's made business worse. You need free-flowing labor force, because let's be honest, when you want to quit, you just quit, right? Yet on the other side, the company can't just say, sorry, there's not enough work for you. There's a whole cost to getting rid of you. Yet if you want to leave, you just walk out the door and say, see you later. So it's really lopsided equity on hiring people now in the UK. The next thing is tenants' rights. So for accommodation, you used to be able to, a lot of people they left the property by a aunt, or they used to convert like a shed into accommodation. Now there's so many rules. You need so many like tiers that you need, the electrics have to be checked. Every year you need an EPC certificate. You need the deposit to be like bona fide. They've made so many checks. We had a tenant company. Sorry, we had a rental company managing some rentals, and he said just every year there's more and more paperwork and more hurdles, costly hurdles, so that not only does it cost a fortune to prepare a house, it then costs a fortune to have the person put in there, and the contract, no matter what you put in there, gives the tenant way more rights than the person that actually owns the property. You can't get rid of them. Even when you ask them to leave, they don't have to. They can just stay. And even when you try to evict them, which is where you have to get to, it takes like over a year, 18 months to evict someone. And even when we had this example, so she was put into a flat of ours by a council, this woman, and she regularly underpaid us. And we served notice, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm not moving. So we're like, okay. And then so we contact the council, and we're like, we're going to sell this flat, so can you ask this person to leave, or can you find them alternative accommodation, because she was on social housing. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to move her. So then we had to file like an eviction notice, and that took months, because we had to have due cause to get our own property back. And then she stopped paying altogether. And then we contacted the council, who were meant to be covering her rent. They're like, yeah, no, we're not paying. And then we're like, well, can we start a court case against the individual? You need to give us her forwarding address. And they were like, oh, we're not giving you her forwarding address. So how can you operate as a landlord when I could legitimately move into a property, not pay, not leave, and when I am evicted, not have any recourse for the debt I owe? So, if anyone's thinking about being a landlord, and then the government wonder why landlords ask for like 6 months deposit and 12 months rent in advance, when you get people like that regularly. in your property. Basically they're killing landlords. So then these properties all hit the market. People won't be able to afford it, and the rental market will shrink. And now, I mean, we hear stories where people are scrambling to rent properties because there just aren't any, because the government has removed any incentive to rent out your property. And then the best thing is, so after all those aggravations of managing a tenant, you then have to put that income down on your tax return, and the government will then take half of it, or if you're a higher rate taxpayer, they'll take like 62% of it, not even half, they'll take more. So then your yield on your property is terrible, like, because they've halved it because of the tax. And then when you come to sell the property, now get this. So let's say you bought your property for 100,000, and then when you come to sell it 10 years later, be maybe 150, 160,000. Now it's only gone up with inflation, only, right? So you've actually made nothing, because money is now worth, 100,000 is now worth 150,000. You've made nothing, right? Now you can argue with me as much as you like, but you won't have made, your purchasing power will be the same, because if this is the proof, if you have a 2-bed that you bought for 100,000 and now you're selling your 2-bed for 100,000 and sorry, 150,000, how much would it cost you to buy a 2-bed? 150,000, right? So how much have you made? Nothing. And then you've got the huge transaction costs that go with buying and selling a property. But the government have removed the inflation link. So now they go, well, you've made 50,000, which is just fraud. It's literally fraud. It's literally, my blood rages, because they obviously knowingly are just taking your money. They're just stealing your money, because you haven't made 50,000. You've bought a 2-bed, you're selling a 2-bed. Your intrinsic item hasn't changed. If you now had to rebuy a property, you're buying a 1-bed. So they've just stolen from you. The government has stolen from you. And not only have they taxed all that rental income on the way, they're now taxing your the money you haven't made in the purchase. And this is typical UK since 2000, and then worse since 2008, worse again since 2010. Worse again since 2020, and worse again since COVID. So the decline of the UK has been so rapid that people outside the UK think it's still the 90s. Now, I'm going to make a caveat here. If I could get my kids into Cambridge or Oxford University, I would. Why? Because those establishments are independent, and they are still very, very good. Those two universities, that is the only reason to be in the UK. Oxford, Cambridge, literally. There is no other reason. Maybe if you got a job at an investment bank and it was in London, fine, but you're not going to save any money, because the cost of living in London is nuts. You need probably 100,000, probably more, to break even, because they're going to take half, so you're down to 50. You've then got rent of £2,000 a month, so that's 25 gone. You've then got 25 to live on, which isn't enough, not in London. So you need in excess, I think, of like £200,000 to live in London. So you're not going to get that as a junior analyst in a bank. So think really hard before you try to live in London or try to live in the UK. They're all anecdotal stories, I know, and I appreciate, but that is UK-wide. So I don't know what the UK is surviving on. There must be just some companies that are big enough. Maybe it's being big enough means you can survive in the UK, and you get the politician's ear and you can somehow make a buck. But you need a serious salary, and as a company you need serious support. My sister, for example, she works in a pharmaceutical company, Japanese pharmaceutical company, and they choose to have a presence in the UK. Obviously it's a $1 billion industry, has a $1 billion company, and so they're all right. You know, she's paid a good salary, she lives south of London, and you know, month to month I think she does okay. And that, I think, is your only option. That's your only chance if you were wanting to live in the UK. But as I said, the only reason for me to go to the UK would be for Oxford and Cambridge. I wouldn't even bother with the other universities. I mean, LSE is there, but It ain't Oxford and it ain't Cambridge, you know. It's just LSE. There are some hedge funds that have a presence in the UK, but remember, they'll be on the tax dodge. For example, the one that I worked at, they had to have, check this, their board meetings. They went to Paris to have the board meeting because apparently if they'd held the board meeting in the UK, that would have made them tax liable. So that's how they got around it. Maybe VC firms, it's a similar thing. They have their presence maybe in London, Berkeley Square, but you know, they're talking of amounts of money that make your eye bleed. So, you know, maybe they can get around the costs, but I'm sure they're on a tax dodge as well. They're probably all paid offshore and they probably reckon, you know, they probably bring in the money as they need it. That sort of setup. I don't really know, but they have a London presence still. So if you can get in with them, yeah, maybe you'll be okay. The UK's, my point is, the UK is really not what it was, and the opportunities have really vanished, and it's all government led. They are killing it, one regulation at a time. I just thought of another change in the UK, and this one's going to blow your mind. So we used to have a weekly bin collection. So back in the 80s and 90s, you had black bin bag your rubbish, and on a Friday you'd put it out like on the street, bin around to come through, and you could kind of put anything. So you'd bin bag most of your stuff, but like you could, if you wanted to throw away an old knackered table or like just anything, and it would all go. Bin man would just take it. Now that makes sense, right? Because you pay your council tax for a bin service. So check this. They then gave you a bin, and you could only fill your bin. If you overfilled it, they wouldn't take it. If the bin lid was like a jar, they wouldn't take it. So then what do you do with that excess rubbish? Well, you fly tip it. So they went from and that would take anything. So then came the bin. So now you're restricted by the amount. And then the bin collection went from weekly to fortnightly. So wait, it gets worse. Now it's gone from fortnightly to every 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, they don't take your rubbish. Can you believe it? I just can't believe it. So you've got to hold on to your waste for 3 weeks. And I think it might even be 4 weeks in some places, because the bin men can't come round and collect the rubbish. It's the failure of basic services like bin collection which defines the failure of the UK. And then from having so bin bags to bins, they then made blue bins, grey bins, green bins and brown bins. So now not only do you have one bin for rubbish, you then have another bin for recyclables. But and on the lid it'll tell you what that means, because I understand recyclables to be something very different to what's on the lid. And then you have the green bin for like grass cuttings and stuff, because you can no longer like have a grass cuttings burn up in your garden. You can't have a bonfire in your own garden now. Literally, the bin alone defines the failure of the UK state. And anyway, that's where we've got to. You get your rubbish taken away every 3 weeks, if not every 4 weeks, and you have to sift through your own throw out into your respective bins. All right, that's it.